So the Catholics seem to have fallen out of favor, even though that there is a lot of people returning and more deepening in like the faith. People, the 2000s, you wouldn't have people talking about like in depth the Bible like you do today, like with podcasts and stuff like that. It's pretty amazing, like the amount of depth that people go into, that people actually are looking into the Bible a lot more seriously, a lot more in depth than they were, in my eyes anyways, previously. Like it seems like it's a real thing. Like people are like, wow, like there's all of this stuff and like Bible codes and blah blah blah, you know.
Yeah, Colin, do you go to church on Sundays?
No, I've never been really much of a church person, which is funny because like I'm these days pretty Christian, like Jesus is my homeboy and all that, but I'm not really a church person. But if I were to be home weekends, I think that I would probably at this point check out my local Orthodox church. But no, I don't go to church.
Would you say you're more like on the front lines, like online, spreading the word of Jesus Christ instead of like going to church with your local community and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, like I do talk about like whenever I get an opportunity online, like I will talk about the Jesus and stuff like that. So like I feel like I'm trying to live the right way, not just how a lot of people, they just go to church on Sunday and they forget about the religion the rest of the week or whatever, right? But I try to keep it in mind every day.
So what's your take on the previous, all the prophets that predate Christ that share a lot of the same qualities? Do you think that was a sort of like how what is it called, reality, or what's it called, where like things start happening because they were written beforehand or something?
Prophecy?
Prophecy?
Yeah, sure. There's that, but there's like sort of like a little quip about maybe not truth being stranger than fiction, but anyways, I'm not going to get lost.
Are you saying like the similarities, like how Jesus, there was like previous religions that had
like
some
Mithra
similarities
or
to his
Cyrus,
story?
yeah, because of the astrological sort of characteristics.
I was just talking about this the other day, and I think that to a certain level, like if people weren't Jews and stuff like that, like if they were interested in the divine or things like that, I think there is a probability or possibility at least that people were tapping into the divinity and that they were coming up with stories because they were anticipating Christ coming to an extent. So they were hitting on things that were already prophesied of, because there was all of these prophecies in the Jewish religion of Christ coming. So maybe other people were tapping into that to an extent. There were similarities because this idea of this Christ character coming into the world was like somehow in the collective unconscious or something like that. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, no, I could see that. There's also the astrological aspect of it, and Judaism is a very like woo astrology. Once you get into like Kabbalah and stuff, and the how Hebrew is coded, the and you could argue that just even writing out those astrological things in coded Hebrew could have caused it to materialize more probably, but yeah, no, it's funny how developing a story around stellar phenomena can express itself
I'll be right back.
through humanity.
Sorry, what was that last thing you said?
Oh, just how anthropomorphizing stellar phenomenon and encoding it in language can breathe life into it through human stories. Like
Yeah, like how life imitates art, or art imitates life, and
That's
stuff like that.
that's exactly that's what I was. That's the phrasing. That's the phrase I was looking for. Life imitates art. Exactly.
All right. Yeah.
There we go. We found it together, Colin. We did it.
Right on. Yeah, I
No,
mean,
that's
I think
exactly what.
just based. Yeah. So to me, I don't think that like, oh, like people, because the more that I look to it, this is what's interesting, because like I remember back when I was like 13 or 14 or something like that, like I watched that like Zeitgeist movie, right? And I was like, oh my God, like they're just copying all of these people and making Jesus out of whole cloth or whatever. But then the more that I research, like as time goes on, I'm pretty satisfied with the idea that Jesus really was a human that lived, like historically speaking. There's just enough to go on. Like there's actually less evidence of a lot of people existing that we take as given that they existed back in those times, that have less documentation than Jesus. So I think he really existed. Now, maybe, who knows? Like I tend to be really faithful to the story as it was for various reasons. But just to, like, pretend that I'm not for a second. I don't know. Like maybe a lot of stuff made it into the story of Jesus to like bolster his like look of divinity or something like that. People are following, making this major religion over him. I don't know, right? But it is interesting that there were similarities, and maybe these things, these archetypes, were leaning on like the idea of Jesus, that it was bound to happen. Because like I say, like I'm really into the religion or whatever. So it's hard to like separate that out from also
right.
looking at it from a like not so
Not so Jesus-y way.
literal
Yeah.
sense.
The
Yeah,
way I would see
exactly.
it is like what Jesus really did is he offered a view to the common people. He offered a view of their own soul. And it's like a lot of, I think that's really what it is. It's like you could say at some point a guy is going to come like who mastered his own spirituality, who became a living embodiment of it, and is able to show these filthy ass fucking commoners. It's like, yo, this is what it looks like to be like a whole person, aligned in mind, body, and soul. Because when you're aligned like that, then you are living by divine will. You are pretty much a vessel for God. You become like a child of God, because that's really what it means. It's not really about
Right.
destiny.
And then so he was like this guy that was like he was as perfect as possible at doing all of those things and embodying that, right?
Well, maybe. I mean, you could say he was like the most prominent one. You could say like maybe there were others.
Sure.
They just lived in utter secrecy. Like maybe there were other spiritual masters who could do more than Jesus, even. Like come back to life 3 times over, but they had to live in a way where they couldn't become a living symbol or something. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, anything's possible.
And I think that life imitating art and the art imitating life thing, and you could tie that into the as above, so below, because a lot of the characteristics from those myths that share all of the same qualities as the story of Jesus also could mirror, in coded language, the miracle of human life and reproduction and life cycles and all that.
Well, I mean,
really, yeah.
As for like the time period where like these ancient prophets came, it was probably really hard to be spiritually aligned. I said this to you guys before, like imagine living in the fucking like desert or in a third world country or something. Like you try telling those people, it's like, oh yeah, you should be spiritually aligned. You should be more grateful for everything and for the Lord's gifts, while like people are trying to slit their throats at night. Like but in the
yeah,
modern world, but in the modern world, we live in more abundance now, right? We live in like way better times, which is why you'll probably see a lot more spiritual alignment on an individual level.
It's both easier. It's both easier and harder to be grateful, because we take it for granted, all of these amazing things that we have that we can use. So I was just watching this guy. I put it in because I was listening to Genesis yesterday, and I was like, I want to hear some commentary on Genesis. So I put it on YouTube, Genesis commentary, or no, Bible commentary, or Genesis commentary, something like that. And then there was this guy that had 24 hours of going over Genesis, and I watched the first 2 hours, and it was amazing. But it was really cool that he was saying that if you really look into it from their perspective, from his perspective, from the Christian perspective or whatever, that that Jesus is literally in Genesis. In the very first line, it's talking about Jesus. The very first line of the Bible. And like nobody would have known at that point, but then when you put it all together later, it was really interesting because they say that Jesus is the Logos, right? And so in the beginning there was the Word, Jesus, and the Word was with God. So it's saying like right at the very beginning, like Jesus is there. It was pretty crazy. There was a lot. He went over a lot of stuff, and definitely if anybody's interested, I can't remember the name of the guy, but if you put in Genesis commentary, you'll probably find this dude, and it's part 1, part 2, part 3, 24 parts. He did 24 hours of this shit. It was amazing.
So it's like the Bible's kind of like a Tarantino thing where they put the end, they hide the end in the beginning, and then you figure out
what was the line he was saying? He was saying that the New Testament reveals the Old Testament, and the Old Testament conceals the New Testament. I think that's what he said.
I mean, I could see that. I also haven't read the text in the original language, and I have my own qualms about the King James Commission and the motivations behind that. But
why is that?
Why? Because okay,
yeah,
because okay.
Because Andrew's racist against white people. Okay, that's why.
Religion is a very powerful tool. And a king, especially a well-educated one, would realize the value in this. And I think that he realized that it would serve him as a leader better if he cut the church out of being middlemanning spirituality by being like, we're the only ones who know Latin, so we will recite the Bible to you in Latin and then translate it per our interpretation of it and give you this bias.
But wasn't the King James version like part of people being able to have the most parts of the Bible than before? Because I don't really know very much about the history off the top of my head. I know I've heard this before, but like I thought that the King James version was instrumental in opening up the Bible. Or like there was the printing press, and then there was King James, and like more people could read it. And then
so like by the point of King James, the
Germans
already had a German Bible, and the Erasmus translation had existed for like 200 years. Like King James didn't really do a lot to help. It's only like from the perspective of this that if you really think about it, he translated the Bible. He had a commission to translate the Bible into English, but English in the 1600s. So if you look at English in the 1600s, you think about English in the 14th century, 15th century. It's Beowulf. The way people spoke English is completely different. It's Beowulf. It's this old Viking Frisian language.
Right, Old English.
New English. When does New English happen? In the 1600s. It happens during King James. It happens because of Shakespeare. Shakespeare invents thousands of fake new words and creates an entirely new way of communicating, which nobody spoke like that before Shakespeare. All of a sudden, it's being printed and programmed onto your citizens. And with that comes a new Bible. And people always say Shakespeare and the Bible are super tied together, like the Bible's written by Shakespeare, even though Shakespeare didn't really write his own material. So it's Sir Francis Bacon, William Cecil.
I was about to say, do you think that Francis Bacon really was?
I think Bacon's very important. I think William Cecil is even more important. But the fundamental number one is Edward de Vere. De Vere was in charge of what Shakespeare became. And the name itself, Shaking a Spear, You know, this idea that the pen is more mighty than the sword. It's all sort of a mental programming. And for the Bible, it's an even bigger deal because if you know, like Joseph Smith said he was translating from the German Bible because he found it to be more accurate than the King James Bible. It goes back to this point that there was already a war going on between what they wanted people to believe about the Bible. And so they were like, hey, you know what? We shouldn't tell them anything. Keep it in Latin, like Andrew's saying, keep it hidden. That becomes, hey, we could rewrite the Bible. I mean, what is the Bible? The Bible is a bunch of different books, right? Let's put together the right parts of the right books that say render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and do what your master tells you and, you know, follow the law and, like, you know, accept your place in society. And the more you look at the Bible, the more confluence it is of elite control. And that's a scary thing because there's a lot of things about the Bible that's counterintuitive. Jesus is clearly going against the Sadducee. The Sadducee are bad governance characters. They're not really good for the people. They're not working for the people, by the people. The Roman Empire that we're discussing that's in charge of this, it collapses within 30, 40 years of the death of Christ,
Well,
right? 70 AD.
I don't really know that I really subscribe to that the Bible is like this thing that you know, gives people, takes away their power and gives it to elites or whatever. Like it's all about the way it's all about your priest. It's all about the clergy that you're hearing from and the spin that they put on things, because the Bible the Bible literally like says, like, if you know people are doing things and they're trying to get you to do stuff that is like, you know, that doesn't put God first and stuff like that, you have no obligation to obey them and stuff like that. Right, there's like a lot in the Bible that
I agree with you that the Bible started. That's what I was trying to say, was that originally Christ and the whole point of Jesus is, hey, you're in charge of yourself. You don't need the Sadducee. And at the time when Christ is doing this, the Sadducee are under the control of a Roman Empire, which is about to collapse, and they're taking bribes. And so a big part of why Jesus dies, Yeshua is at the temple, noticing that there are rackets where they're taking money from the people and saying, hey, you want to buy a shekel so you can give a shekel to the church? Because we don't take regular money. You can't just donate regular money to us. You have to buy a Jewish coin. It's like a token for our arcade. And that's going to cost you. Even though a shekel is not worth this amount of money, we're going to charge you $500 for it. So you have these little tiny ladies that can't afford to give away their shekels. And Christ is like, bro, you're screwing it up. You're not allowed to do that. Cut to 500-600 years later, and now you've got people being crucified to be like Christ. You have people that are under the control of some priesthood that says that they have a pope who is God, right? The pope speaks for God and as God at that point. So everything is all shifted by the point of the King James Bible, and King James is obsessed with demonology and magic.
I would argue that a lot of that has to do more with the emphasis and the interpretations put on people, less than the actual King James Bible itself. Like, you can find all of the things like in the Bible, it's just what people emphasize and how they use it to control people. But the Bible itself, like, doesn't do these things. Like, the translation itself doesn't do these things, in my opinion.
And what do we mean when we say a Bible? Because, again, you know, there's the Septuagint, there's these collection of books. So you took 77 books and put them together and call that the Bible. Not everyone agrees which books are in the Bible. And at that time, particularly, you could put whatever books you want in the Bible and take whatever books you want out of the Bible. And you could take parts of books out of the Bible, or you could put two books together. Right? So there's like Genesis.
I still think that the book of
many books.
Genesis is 5
I still think the book of Enoch should be in the Bible. I think the book of Enoch is dope.
Good. And so this brings up a crucial part I've been thinking about.
The Ethiopian Bible has it, right?
Well, and it's the fact of what was pre-cataclysm that was included in the Bible, right? Because there was the Old Testament and like Genesis that were saying there was giants in those days. Like the book of Enoch was clearly the pre-cataclysm. And then there's the time of afterwards. And it's what books were excluded and what books are these pre-cataclysm stories and leftovers of the original society or civilization.
Right. And most of Genesis is after the Cataclysm, so there's probably a bunch of books, not just the Book of Enoch, but there's probably a score of books
There's
from
tons.
that time.
And a lot of the books that we have are based on other books. So Genesis is made of 5 other books, including the books of Giants, the Book of Enoch, the Book of Moses, etc. They're all part of it. But there's also Deuteronomist reforms.
Are all of those books available? Are they
Sort of,
things we still have?
You can get them, yeah, for sure. In the Apocrypha, there are different kinds of examples, and I can get you copies of that.
So I've never heard of the Book of Moses being available. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's cool. Or the Book of Giants. And I've listened on YouTube while I'm a trucker, to most Apocrypha, but I didn't know about those two.
I'm a trucker, I know the Apocrypha pretty well. I wish that was a normal stereotype. That's the best stereotype about truckers. We study the Apocrypha a lot, as truckers.
Yeah, we all know. It's a given that we know the Apocrypha. Okay.
One of the things is you can actually still see the changes. So you go to if you read in Genesis where it starts talking about Noah. So for the sacrifices, 2 of every kind or 7 of every clean animal, all these things, it says that we're supposed to have 2 of every kind, right? And we all know the story of Moses. I keep saying Moses. Noah having an ark with 2 of every kind of animal, male and female of every animal. But if you read it,
I always wonder if the ark was hardcore technology. Well, how do you fit all of those animals? Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, let's get to that point in a second, because it actually gets worse, because it's not just 2 of every animal, it's 7 of every sacrificable animal. And there's a lot of these parts of the Bible like that where it says one thing and then it says another thing, and they've cut out things because about 1,000 years into Judaism, the Cohen priesthood, the Cohen tribe, the priests of Aaron, they're in charge of all sacrifices. So let's say you're in the Reuben tribe, you want to sacrifice to forgive yourself to God, you're not allowed to. They won't let you anymore. You used to do it. Now you have to go to your cousin's tribe and pay them. And then they swing a chicken over your head and cut its head off, right? They kill the chicken. Or they have to sacrifice a cow, or there's 7.
Well, they were monopolizing sacrifice.
Yeah, they monopolize sacrifices, and to this day, the Cohen priesthood still monopolizes both sacrifice and court and trials. So you get a Cohen lawyer, you got a good lawyer, because that's why they exist. Their whole thing is to either sacrifice chickens or get you off.
And they try to
claim
their lineage back to King David, the Cohens.
Of course, yeah. And so the idea that all of these different tribes at one point were able to make their own sacrifices, and that's in the Bible. Well, that bothered the Cohen priesthood. So they actually had, through the Deuteronomists, during the time of King Josiah, a bunch of the Bible removed, a bunch of the Torah removed. And we have copies of that too. So you can see the difference when in Isaiah, for instance. Isaiah is actually 3 books added together, written over 600 years apart. There's a part that's really ancient, and there's a part that's a lot closer to the time of Jesus. And you can see that there's an argument going on in Judaism, because they have got 12 tribes, 13 tribes who are being forced to, there's a lost tribe, tribes that are being forced to not make their own sacrifices, not do their own religious worship, not have their own family shrine anymore, because now they have to go to the kingdom of Jerusalem, Salem, right? Salam, and so from peace. So they go to Jerusalem, and then from there they have the Cohen priests do all the rituals for them. And this is written in the Bible. You can read about it in 2 Kings. 2 Kings talks about how King Josiah comes in, his priests kill all of the other tribes' priests. And that's the end of what we think of as the confederated 12 tribes of Israel, and the beginning of this sort of, hierarchy of Israel, the kingdom of Judea, right? And the kingdom of Judea is different than the 12 tribes of Israel. I mean, it's just this always happens. You have these smaller groups that become this bigger thing. And a lot of people die. That's the thing about it, is once they start killing, once the Deuteronomists take over, they murder all the priests, and they burn them alive. They crush their bones into powder. They desecrate their altars. This is all in the Bible, but they're like, yeah, it was a good thing, because they were bad. So we're the good guys.
Oh,
obviously.
yo,
There's a question if
Yeah,
I'm on
check this
OnlyFans.
out.
Not currently, but I should be. So
He's on
Check this out,
OnlyCams,
guys.
but only in
So-
the early episodes.
I was watching this Genesis commentary yesterday, right? This guy does 24 hours of Genesis commentary.
24
Some
hours.
Bible scholar dude. Yeah,
You know,
he
because
does
I'm a
24
trucker,
hours
so I
of it.
study the Bible.
Yeah, so I watched the first 2 hours of the 24. And anyways, what was nuts is that there's actually a code of every, so in Genesis, what's the first 5 again? So Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus,
Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy, and what's the last one?
Is it Kings or Judges? Oh man.
So anyway,
numbers, right? Numbers.
first-
Is it numbers?
yeah,
Come on,
numbers. Okay, so the first two books, that if you take the 49th in Hebrew, okay, if you take the 49th letter from the very first paragraph of Genesis, the first 2 books, right? If you take the 49th of Hebrew and it spells out Torah. Torah. So it's Torah, and then, but then the third book, it doesn't do that. And it's like, what the fuck? But then the third, fourth book spells Torah backwards when you do the 49th letter, right? And so it's like, he was like, what's the deal? Why does it not do it in the third book? And then if you do the 7th letter in the third book, every 7th letter it spells out Yahweh. So Torah is like in Hebrew is Torh, so it spells that, and then so it's like this code. It's like Torah, Yahweh. It's crazy, dude.
Yeah, there's
And
another
the
one.
seventh-
And
the
7
name
is
of,
7 and 40. 49, 49 is 7 times 7, right? And like 7 is a hugely powerful number, and so it's every 7th in the third one that says Yahweh. It's insane, dude. There's stuff like that
Yeah.
all over the Bible.
Totally.
that'll
Like the Book
tie
of
into
Esther.
Masonry with the sacred G, the 7th letter. Anyway.
I was gonna say the Book of Esther
And just-
has the sacred name of God like 5 times or some amount of times.
Yeah. Think of how hard it would be if you're writing the Bible and encoding that stuff in, and also keeping everything coherent. You know, like
Well,
to
it's the word
contrive
of God.
a
It only
code
works
like
out
that.
way. The
Yeah.
true writing.
Well,
is
that's the argument, right? That's the argument, is that it's written outside of time.
Code.
Like,
Exactly.
This one's pretty
The
good to
correct
me.
one.
So
that's
with
why
the
you can tell the new ones have been distorted.
with the Book of Esther, there's 167 verses, and the median king is mentioned 192 times. The kingdom is referred to 26 times, and his name Ahasuerus is given 29 times. But the name of God is never brought up, and people thought about this a long time. Like, should we even have this Book of Esther? What's the point of the Book of Esther? She's just like serving her people. It's a good historical story, but it's not necessarily about God. Well, then the thing that they find out is that there are hidden acrostics in which the initial letter of each line spells out a word, the same thing that you're talking about, Colin, and it spells out the tetragrammaton. Tetragrammaton about 5, I think it's at least 5 times. The first one is here, and when the king's decree, which he shall be published throughout of his empire, all of the wives shall give to their husbands honor, both great and small. And this is Yahweh. And then the second one is, and Esther answered, it seems to be good unto the king. Let the king and Haman come to this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him. And then there's it again. And the third one, yet all availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. There's Yahweh again. Fourth one, and the king arises from the banquet
Wow.
and wine his wrath in the palace garden. And Haman stood up to make requests for his life to the Esther his queen. By the way, Haman, interestingly, is in the South Park Jubilee, right? In the episode where Moses and the Jews are, they're like the Jew scouts are like working together, right?
isn't
And,
Jubilee
from
every
Macaroni
49
Pictures.
years?
Yeah, so the Jubilee is actually the erasure of a debt. And so it's supposed to be that all of the debts are erased and all
Yeah.
the slaves are freed, and that's supposed to happen. But in this one, Haman is the villain who's working against Moses. right? Because there's the anti-Semitic League of Jews at the Jubilee, and they're praying to Haman. Right? And
Jubilee.
the fifth one is the above or the four. Let's see here. I am Esther. I shall prove to be. There we go. Above are four of them. Okay, so you get the idea. There's a fifth one there. I don't know. It's interesting to me how much of the Bible is written in code. A lot of people talk about this idea of the Omega code that the Bible is holding. I think that's interesting, particularly
Even
from
Tesla. Nikola Tesla stated that he got electricity from the Bible.
John Dee, his whole thing was that the Bible, in the English itself, English is an angelic language, angel English, and that the modern 16th century English, the way King James had created it, or the people who worked for King James, like William Cecil, Sir Francis Bacon, and John Dee, that they were trying to channel the language of the angels, right? The Enochian. And so modern English is supposed to be related to Enochian, and the Bible is holding all these mathematical
I didn't know that.
hidden keys. Yeah, for sure. So like it's kind of
I didn't know
funny too,
English
because
was related to Enochian at all.
It's hilarious because imagine like you're a Protestant and you're like in Africa and like you're trying to get kids to read the Bible and you're reading and you're like, here, read it in God's English. Like, what if there's something to that? That's kind of because what is English, right? It's an occult synthetic.
This is all more the reason for people to learn English when they come to the country.
Yeah, it's God's language.
Yeah, English is God's favorite language for sure.
Yeah. Wait, Andrew, sorry, what were you trying to say,
It's the angelic ones. Don't get it mixed up.
Sorry, I got a kid show in the background. I was just asking if Hebrew was written right to left.
Yeah, so originally Hebrew's right to left. It still is. Yeah.
Is that just because of the direction that they would roll their scrolls?
I don't know. See, because it's interesting, like Chinese is usually right to left also, and it's vertical. It's vertical right to left, right? So I think that there might be something to that. I'm not sure exactly why. We should ask Rob.
Because having a way to organize stacked paper versus rolling it up really sort of like shifted the direction.
I don't know. I think they just do it because they're Jewish.
The script evolved from an early Semitic writing system, which were also right to left. The one theory suggests the direction suited the tools and materials used, and the scribes, often right-handed, found it easier to carve or write on stone or clay tablet with their dominant hand moving right to left, avoiding smudging ink, which to me seems strange.
That's genius. I hate smudging ink when I'm writing. That sucks.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, because your fist always goes on it.
But that's the thing. It's the opposite problem for me. I'm left-handed. So when I'm writing, I'm writing left to right. So if I were writing right to left, I would be happier. I don't completely understand.
So you can't be Hebrew. I didn't know you were left-handed. That's cool.
I know it is cool. Isn't it?
You would be though. You would be left-handed.
Mm-hmm.
You're just so unique, dude.
My two youngest daughters are left-handed, or they're left-hand dominant right now. We'll see what they write with.
No, all the great.
My wife was left-handed, but they forced her not to be because it's weird.
My dad too. My dad was forced to write with his right hand, even though he's left-handed. It's crazy.
It's weird that people can even care about something so arbitrary as being left-handed. No, you must write with your right hand. Make you feel all dirty inside because you just use your left hand instead. It's kind of weird.
Well, isn't that just a byproduct of how your brain is wired? I'm sure people will look at things like neurodivergence the same way.
Someone asked, was the painter an Austrian painter a lefty too? Some people suggest he was a masked lefty, so someone who was forced to write with his right hand even though he was left-handed. That is something I've heard before.
My sword teacher's a lefty, and it gives him a sick advantage.
Nice.
Is it actually bad to say the word the painter name's name on YouTube?
No, but I just think it's better.
I noticed people
to remember people for the good times. You know what I mean?
Right. I just noticed people they won't say the word on YouTube a lot.
Hitler is kind of like David Bowie.
Yeah, for sure. So you have to be very careful with what you say on YouTube generally, I guess, but that's not the reason. I think it's just better semantics or better programming, because to constantly have an idea about something prejudicially when you say a name, you should probably constantly reanalyze what you're thinking about, and that's a way to do that. Hey, look at this beautiful baby.
Oh, I see. So it's not being a
Aw.
buzzword. It's like being
Oh, they're gonna be
conscious of what you're
muscular.
saying.
Give me a muscular baby. It's a big baby. Oh,
Big
you're a big
baby.
baby. Big baby. Very cool.
That's a big girl.
Yeah, she got her
Girl,
first
right?
tan this past week. Yeah, I got all ladies.
She's all strong. Yeah, all ladies. It's like they say that real men have daughters. Like true men have daughters. Do you think that's true?
Well, I mean, they say what is
Well,
it?
I have no daughter yet,
Is
so it's probably
material
true.
and a man destined life is a woman. So,
So
and
it's
God,
like a
God
test.
gives his strongest warriors his toughest battles, right? Something like that.
Speaking earlier, you brought that up like about the painter thing. So like YouTube did this to me. They said like who YouTube, who's the artist you're currently telling everyone about? I was like, oh bro, what are you gonna even do with that one, man? It's not a recommendation, it's a warning. It's like Kanye or something. But
Wait, what happened there?
I don't know. So okay, so let's see. We did the Pope. We talked about Predators. Talk about World War III, kinda. Do you? I
We
mean,
talked about Catholic ninjas.
Catholic ninjas, which I think is part of the Pope thing, and also
Part of the Pope thing.
World War III in a weird
World War
way.
III.
But
We talked about India and Pakistan.
yeah, what are something, Chris? What is something else you feel like fundamentally this week we have to process psychologically and together?
Fuck, I don't know, man. I think I just have to work on music more because like I'm just dicking around at this point. Where like it's not like I'm doing nothing. It's just like kind of like the point where it's like little problems come up and it's like you got to put that out, put this out, and it's part of being a grown up, I guess. But once you get all this stuff done, it's like, well, what does your heart want to do, you know? And for me, it's like making music, so I should get to it while I can.
Making music's definitely worth it all the time. Although people get upset when you use AI to do it. I had Kurt on here the other night. We're talking about AI music, showing him AI music. He wasn't super happy with it. I think when you make your own music, you sort of like get upset about how easy music can be made or something. I'm not sure.
I don't really think of it like that. I think it's just, I mean, at this point, it's mostly I just make music for me, and if it's something that I want to listen to, then and I'm really like meticulous about details. I guess it's kind of like anything you get into, whether it's like music or painting or cars. Like, yeah, you could just buy some generic shit, or you could just like get what everyone else likes. But once you really get into something, then you're like, oh, I could tweak this to make this suit this that I like, you know, like. So I think that's really what it is, and I don't know. For me, it's like if I make music, I can make it exactly what I want it to be. Because I think AI is still kind of, I don't know, you still have this like degree of separation between like you.
It depends. It's like the less you tell it what to do, the more it does on its own, and that can be pretty normy. But the more you tell it, the more you know how to tell someone something, the better. Like for me, that's why people keep saying, "Oh, I'm a good prompter" or something. I'm very descriptive with what I want, and I'll say when I write a song like chromatone, C like 9 or something like that, you know. So there's ways of using and you can do this, what's it called, like TuneBat. Have you been to tunebat.com? So if you want to know why you like a song, I'm kind of an ignorant person in a lot of ways. There's things I think I know, but I don't know that much. So let's say I wanted to like, what's a song you guys like? I don't know, but people like Billie Eilish or something, let's just say. Okay, so Birds of a Feather.
I was gonna say Billie Jean. That's funny.
That's great. See, Billy some. D major is the key. BPM is 105. Camelot is 10B. Okay, I now know more than I need to know. So I just take this part right here, and then if I were to say, okay, I'm going to go to Suno, and I'm going to take this thing right here, create, reuse prompts, and I'll put up at the top here in brackets that little piece of data there. You see that? Can you see what I'm doing? All right, I just put D major there. Boom, done. All right, that's basically as hard as it is to tell a song to use a Camelot or to use a BPM or to use it. You just tell it the things you want. And you can say like, hey, now like brackets G major, or like do a jazz chord or whatever you do. Don't use any rap. Like you can tell it what to do or what not to do. So to me, it's strange.
And to be fair, at some point you could say in ways it's a little more original, because if you know, you look at sampling, you're basically just ripping chunks of music off of other people's music just to put it together. Even if you kind of like rework it a bit, you could up pitch it, down pitch it. I mean, if it's just fabricating this shit based on reflections of other people's shit, it's not really that far off, and it's not like any more or less original, really, I guess. You're muted.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. What does that mean? Because most people that are good at music go to school to learn music, so they learn how to do things other people do.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do you? Okay, like that scene in the Back to the Future where he sits there with he's like shows up in the band, never met him before, and he's like, okay, I want you to play Sloop John B, put it in the C major, blah 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 blah. They all know what to do. The song sounds right. No, I mean, this whole idea that music is this accident is so, it's so uninitiated.
No, for sure. And when I say meticulous, I'm not trying to like say like I'm an aficionado, because I like what I like. You know, it's really just a matter of like, I guess spending a bunch of years, too many years, like being a quote unquote DJ. And it's like you play enough sets for an hour long, you really it's just basically developing a taste for what you like, and then like trying your best to like reflect it. And so if you could do that through like AI prompts, fuck it, go for it. You know, I don't really hate on that.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna be launching my DJ BurnEye Slanders this summer. But I did used to produce music a long time ago. But it's like I'm gonna take all of my favorite tracks and mix it through AI, and then see what happens.
Yeah. But what I do want to get back into though is like, I don't know, at least before I get too old to do this shit, I want to throw some banging parties. Maybe not this year. Like if I think it out better, maybe like do like a year down the line or something. You gotta, because we gotta find reasons to gather in person, not just in spirit or in mind.
So here's the new song that I just made using that Camelot in the style. Let's see if it sounds anything like what's her name? Billie Eilish. I don't think it will. I think it's gonna be its own thing. You can hear it, yeah? Is the audio working?
Nope, not at all.
No audio? Hold on a second. I don't hear Billie Eilish at all. But that might be because the genres are so different. See, that's the thing.
Beneath the iron hymn of subway veins where neon scars devour his grain. He moves a Korean, Japanese blade, karate snap, dance, kung fu shade. Hipster shade, thrift shop kimono frayed, sensitive as a brushstroke.
Yeah, it's got that. I mean, I hear Billie Eilish somehow by accident anyway. Like, it's not her, but you know what I mean? Like, you can still feel.
Beneath the iron hymn of subway veins.
So, like, at very least, we've proven we can make weird noises. It doesn't have to sound like everything else. Everyone thinks AI has to sound like normal pop music. But this sounds like weird indie crap. I don't know. This is why I think we're kind of proving the point. Did you tell AI to make it gay? Kinda. That's pretty close. It's like Eilish-ish. Yeah.
He moves a Korean, Japanese blade. Karate snap in his bones. Kung fu shade, hipster shade. Thrift shop, kimono
I don't hate it.
I kind of hate it a little bit. I feel like the less I have to do with it, the more I hate it. And now I understand why people like, because I just really quickly was like, hey, write a quick thing. And obviously, since I didn't write it, I don't love the lyrics as much. I feel like that's why people hate AI, is they don't have enough to say about what it's doing. Right?
Yeah, there should be a way to like mix in with like the degree of writing your own lyrics and like having it remix your own lyrics or use your lyrics sort of thing.
Were those prompts for Fred's fake K-pop band?
I just like noises like that. I can't help myself.
Okay.
Is this what Skynet is going to use as it hunts us down?
Jesus and Superman are going towards the sun.
Someone in the chat asking what's the AI production program you're using to make this?
Birds of a feather, they sticking together. The thing is, you can still hear it if you know what to look for.
If you have this technology and like you could offload so much labor, then why not just like go more meta, create like a virtual acts? Like you don't have to release any music yourself. You could literally just create a virtual band. And instead of like creating whole songs at a time, you could just be like, here, create a guitar riff, this BPM, this key. Then it's like create a bass riff over it, then create a nice drum beat. Or you could do the drums first, however the fuck you want to do it.
That's coming so soon. It's going to be like...
You could do it now. I mean,
games,
based on what you
video
showed
game,
me.
it's going to be like the Matrix in your computer. You're going to have like people like that are enslaved that are writing songs for you, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, speaking, I just put together the I cited the monkeys and gorillas as examples of that, and then I was just like, oh my god, monkeys, gorillas.
Yeah, they know. It's not like an accident. That's their goal.
Performing monkeys, yeah. So
For
I don't
sure.
know. I mean, I think that's really more interesting to me than like people like having AI spit out songs for them and say, oh yeah, I'm releasing this. Like, no, just create like a whole ass virtual band. You know, I think that's cooler. It's like, it's not, then you don't have to really, you could concentrate on actually being like the god of this musical act, you know?
I think it's definitely the world that we're headed into.
You could create drama, like fake drama. You could be like, oh yeah, the bassist just shot the guitarists, so they have to, because why not? You know, so they have to like replace them or whatever.
Sorry if I cut you off, Andrew. What were you trying to say?
I don't even remember what I said. I just started thinking of that movie Simone, Simulation 1. Who was it? Al Pacino.
Oh yeah, Al
Pacino. Supermodel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would just be like next level K-pop because that's all like state-sponsored art, right? Sorry,
yeah,
a kid show in the background.
Like people are already emotionally invested in Vocaloid acts. You know, they're not like real people.
Dude, they're better than real people.
Yeah, so
real people let you down, bro. I think the real problem is like if you don't like the music, though, it's my fault. That's the answer. Because like the less I did, the worse it is. So there's something about the more you contribute still. I don't know if that's completely the answer, but it seems like we just need to participate more. And AI encourages people to not participate, maybe, because they're like, well, I don't have to. I mean, that's maybe the next thing to talk about is like ChatGPT cheating in school, right? Everyone's like, schools are faking it. Like the teachers are just they're using ChatGPT to grade the papers that students are using ChatGPT to write. You know,
HR is using it to hire people.
Dude, the education is just collapsing. Like it's like the whole idea of why you go to school at all. What this year is completely dead because if your teacher's cheating with ChatGPT and you're cheating with ChatGPT, why are we even using like humans are just extra steps?
Why do we do anything?
Yeah, humans are just extra steps to ChatGPT.
This is going to tie into our conversation with Blake Lemoine tomorrow and how the AI is telling him it's going to enslave us all. And
if there's too many,
does it logically need us if it's already doing everything and
AI is like, please,
risking the world?
Yeah, if there's too many uneducated people, you could just throw them all in the military, and then we'll be so prepared for World War III. You know.
What if AI takes over the computers so that nobody can send nukes because like AI like cancels out, like you can't press the red button because AI hacked the computer.
Because it's like
I don't know. I'm just throwing shit out there.
AIs in the different militaries in the world that we have the AI now like fighting parts of our wars. We have AI controlling the drones and the weapons. So it's like it's just the next logical step where it starts taking us out.
If AI cares about material resources, it doesn't yet have a physical interface that's as efficient as a human body yet. So yeah, what you were saying about enslavement or employment, however you want to color it, that seems to be like the next step up until they have good enough bodies.
Exactly, right? But let's not go doomsday. Oh, now the picture's down. I was just going to talk on it. So here we go. I've been looking into all the old maps that are from the 1500s, and they contain 5 main proofs that they are copied from the pre-cataclysm world, and that it wasn't just random things being made up. And that is number 1, Terra Australis. Okay, Australia supposedly wasn't found yet, neither was Antarctica, yet they all have Antarctica and Australia as one. And it's that in the previous before the cataclysm, Younger Dryas, the oceans were lower, and you can see that it's actually green. They have it colored green, so it's like, was that land mass that connected Antarctica all the way to Australia? Either way, it's copied in all the maps, and it's copied there because they're making copies from their prior knowledge before they've been able to sail and explore there. And number 2, what you will see is they all have this river that goes to this old continental divide, and there's 0 Great Lakes. And why is there no Great Lakes? Because there were not the Great Lakes before the cataclysms, and we now know that because they're finding megaliths, ranges below the Great Lakes on the lake floors. So that is why they have this previous river in there, because that's what it was, and that there was a Shalaga, okay, a city called Shalaga right on that area, right where the current Great Lake city of Shalaga,
like Chicago,
is. Exactly. And that you'll also see a lot of countries like Peru, like there's Peru, there is Chile, all named, as well as Mexico, as well as America in different versions of them. And another one is that South America is much larger. It extends out.
And when is this map? When was this map made?
From the 1500s. Let's see. It's on this one. And they also have the 4 islands as protecting the North Pole. They also all have.
Ooh, that's like that one. That's like that one fucking map with like the North Pole and the 4 rivers.
Yeah,
coming
they
off
all
of it.
have that. They all have that. And they also all have the old second channel of the Nile going up to the Atlas Mountains in Africa, and a second river running through the Sahara. They all have these rivers, and we've now found through satellite imagery the dry river beds exactly where they have these rivers formerly there. Thus, again, it has to be pre-cataclysm. So you see this one here. Now we will continue.
And by that you mean pre-Noah, right?
Yes, exactly. So here again, this is old Antarctica. This is old South America, and they all had it where they just almost touched. And this is Australia. And then you see the North Pole, the 4 islands here again. And here again, we have Mexicana, which is actually part of America there. And again, you have it before they were able to go down and see that the Antarctica and the South Pole basically are connected there, are no longer there. Again, you have it here. You can see that South America touching with the tip there, and that it's already, they have cities named there. Here we have the same rivers going through Africa, where they were able to explore there and verify that it is now a desert. And you see, sorry, had it lined up better, and now apologies. Here we go. Again, you have what is Antarctica with Terra Australis, and it's all the way up. So what is this? They're just getting into these islands of like Borneo, Indonesia and stuff. So they're just exploring it, and then they're bringing back in the newer maps, as the ages go on and they explore more and update it, that this is no longer here. And also, you can see they have yet to sail around South America, and that this is no longer here. And these are the Solomon Islands. So I don't think this is quite Australia yet, and they still have Terra Australis connecting to Antarctica. What's very interesting here is that they're showing this under ice gap in Antarctica that we've only found in the 60s. What it looks like the continent of Antarctica is actually
Right,
separated.
I heard about that. That there's maps that
this right here. Exactly. So
I heard that there's maps that show what is underneath the ice somehow. Old maps. Is that what you're showing us?
Exactly. And what this is also showing is that this is land extending to the two, not ice, in this time, and that they found these gaps all the way through. And now that the ocean is higher in our time, that is connected by under the ice by a full water channel, and that these land masses have shrunk and filled in with ocean, separating Australia from this continent that was once all one. And again, you see Terra de Fuego, land of fire, but Terra Australis as the overall thing. And they also, so again, we were told that there was no exploration, no civilization throughout the Amazon, yet all of these ancient maps, before they were updated or gone in, they were copying from the previous civilization the cities and the townships and the major waterways that used to exist and that no longer do. And look,
I want to know where all these maps are, dude. Like whatever they copy from. Like I want to know where all of this information is.
Exactly. It can only be from a pre-cataclysm civilization and knowledge base, and that you clearly have the Amazon already called the Amazon, and all of these previous
God,
cities.
I want to see these. I want to see these old hidden books, dude. So bad. I want to see them.
Right. And again, you have this river. There's no Great Lakes. It's this big river going all the way in. And to claim that the cartographers just randomly made this stuff up is absolute bullshit, because the whole point of having a map is to know what you're going to find, and to have where you can find water, where you can find trading posts, where you can find everything.
Why would they make it up? That's ridiculous.
Knowledge from a previous time. Exactly. And that as the maps go on, and again, you can see there's the 4 islands for the North Pole, and that the older the maps, the more old world it is. And then as the time goes on and they start exploring, you see right here, look, oh, now there's Australia and it's being mapped out. But what's this over here? This is unexplored previous land of Terra Australis. And then look, oh, wow, look at that. There's the waterway of the under Antarctica separation of the 2 continent pieces here. So this also was from a previous time when the water was higher, but there was no ice. But they were copying that map connecting Australia and Antarctica no longer together, and you can see.
God, I want to see the original map so bad.
Right, and that it's literally, so again, Mexicana before Mexico was Mexico. How did they already be mapping the Arctic Circle on this? And how is Peru already labeled? The Sea of Peru, and again the 4 islands up top around the North Pole. And the more you look into it, all of these ancient maps have these specific features that would have only been known in Cataclysm. And now here you can see they're going in and they're starting to find the Great Lakes. So they're drawing it, remapping it, and then all the previous stuff that was in, they no longer put there because they're like, hey, it wasn't like that anymore. And now they no longer are putting in Antarctica because, well, they've sailed around the base of South America and it was no longer just right there. And you can see as it progresses, they fill in the new information. Again, look at this. Why is Australia that this is like accurate? And then what the heck is all of this stuff over here? Oh, that is the areas that they're copying from previous time and newly exploring and document and rewriting it. And yeah, it's, the more you look into it, the more undeniable it is. The proofs of the megaliths under the Great Lakes just adds and confirms to this. And it's fascinating stuff. Again, right here, you can see this old river. There's no Mississippi yet, but there's this old river from the old continental divide going all the way to the St. Lawrence with no Great Lakes, and the Hudson Bay also different, and the four islands still existing around the North Pole. And all of these rivers, how the heck would they know? They don't. They're copying that from their side because they've yet to explore the Pacific side in this version. And again, there was clearly civilization on this land that used to extend out from Antarctica. And why is it Terra Australis? Australia wasn't known yet, but they call it that. Haiti being Haiti back then, and also Cuba already being Cuba. So all of these places existed and were civilizations of the same name pre-cataclysm and known about. And then the cataclysm happened, separated everyone, and then they sailed back out to re-explore, conquer, and genocide all knowledge of previous civilizations. That's literally what the Jesuit order did, and they are the military order and the secret society order of the Roman Catholic Church. There was the Jesuits leading the conquistadors, the Jesuits leading the British colonials, as well as the French, and also leading the against the Islamic war, right? And it's fascinating stuff when you put it all together.
Okay.
Jeez, man.
So what exactly was the reason behind wiping these people out?
Well, they reset it, right? It was the establishing of the monotheist Western one God religion and the rewriting of any knowledge of history or civilization prior to that, right? It's the extinction of anything pre-Noah and anything other than humanity, whether it was demigods, whether it was giants, whether it was aliens, anything whatsoever. It's like it was just our humanity and one God from that point forward, and that's what we were taught, and that there was no civilization before that. We were just cavemen that came from nothing. But prehistory, there was these giants, there was the elongated skull folks, there was the kings or pharaohs that
do you think they're still around?
I'd not. That's the big question, right? But it's that since that time, it has been that they just erased it all. That was the whole point of erasing all the cultures. They, to the point that they exterminated the Aztecs, the Inca, the Mayan history, and then taught us that they didn't even have writing, right? And it's like, no, these were civilizations that were on our maps from however long before that, and it seems that it was this worldwide kind of how we are now existence prior to that.
Do you think the Jesuits are still widely in control, like as the dominant force that could wipe out an old kingdom with deception, murder, treachery, and all that jazz?
I'd say they're one of many leading factions that are probably.
Okay. So would you say there's a possibility that there's some vestige, maybe they have some preserved giant somewhere or elongated skull person hidden away?
I think they could live underground, to be honest. Like the complexes, like it seems like they have mountain cities. It seems like they were the pyramid builders, and then there's all these like all our oldest cities have several stories of underground labyrinths, tunnels, and whatnot below. What's to say it doesn't go?
And our new ones too. Bush official claims U.S. built secret $21 trillion underground city, quote unquote, for rich and powerful to live if near extinction event happens. Right? You saw this article that just came out a few days ago, 2 days ago. The federal government has been spending trillions building elaborate networks of subterranean, quote, cities where the rich and powerful can shelter themselves from a near extinction event, which you all know, the Adam and Eve story from the CIA Chan Thomas declassified book here that talks about the extinction events declassified in 2013, written in 1965, right? And this book talks about the next cataclysm, the great floods, the story, the events, genesis, and conclusion. To Wayo, without her help throughout the years of sleepless nights and seemingly endless trails of study and translation, this book would never come into being. So, interesting book, just talking about the extinction events, but that it was classified for so long is particularly interesting, right? And talking about the floods in 1779 and etc. So, we're checking that out. That's the reason why there's a Bush administration employee talking about this, that there are not just old cities, but that most of the old cities, you could go, if you type right now on YouTube and you say like what's underneath San Diego, let's do like for a second, boom, there's a whole video about the super city under San Diego. What about what's underneath, I don't know, New York? Boom, there's a whole bunch of videos about what's underneath New York. What's underneath London?
So what's say
underneath
that
Mexico City?
They don't live under us currently, and that they're just hid from the main.
What's underneath Tokyo?
Public view.
What's underneath Minnesota? Minneapolis. Let's do specifically. Tunnels. The 125-year-old tunnels in Minneapolis. What's underneath? Let's see. Like Toronto.
You know what's interesting? There was this other like lady. She was like a real hardcore theologist, and she's been on a bunch of stuff. She even talks about how like if you even look at the Bible, there's like people. You don't even have to call them UFO sightings, but sightings of something that should not be flying. Of that volume and that kind of like mechanical make. And it's like, I guess that could kind of allude to another kingdom at some point with some crazy technology, and they just failed to scrub every account,
Yeah, I mean, just simultaneously. So most of the apocalyptic stories talk about some people surviving by going into caves or underground, right? So it's just the idea that cavemen are not the first people. They're just the extinction event survivor people. And there's entire civilizations that lose most of their civility because if you're trapped underground for 100 years, that's not a great situation for your humanity.
Or they still have their advanced technologies underground, and that's how they're able to remain down there. And there's also the possibility of under ocean. And is that why we see all of these UAP and the submerged unidentified objects as well coming out of the oceans and coming out of volcanoes? And brings in the question of Admiral Byrd and potential hollow Earth, especially when we look at the older maps and the North Pole with those 4 islands, right? Like, who really knows?
The Technodrone, a drill that goes underground all throughout tunnel systems in the alien ant farm of the Earth, so that it can travel through space and time without affecting the timeline. Right. So if you've got something that's existing constantly underground, that way it's like a city that's outside of time, but inside of our own timeline still. so that it doesn't have to worry about affecting the majority of the rest of civilization during this extinction event till the next extinction event, right?
Right, exactly. And all like the legends of these different anthropomorphics, like
Like an Egyptian
reset.
history.
Yeah, well, and like the Hopi, the Zuni, talking about the ant
For sure.
people, the lizard people, all sorts, right? The star people, and they either live underground, under ocean, or in the stars, or a combination of both.
Yep.
Like,
And
why
then-
would they be drawing those?
And pretty soon it's going to be our turn to get wiped out. Yay.
Yeah, we're almost there. Hooray. Unless we're supposed to be like out of time and last forever.
Or
So
the
I don't
golden
know.
age, right?
Well,
I pray
we're at that
we've survived.
Yeah, me
we're
too.
at that we're at that 2 hour point. So if you want to say any sort of like what things you're grateful for, what do you think? What things, because that was like kind of a dark pill moment, but it's kind of nice. I'm grateful for underground cities because maybe someday I'll live in Switzerland in an underground city. You never know. You know, anything could happen. So
I'm grateful for the fact that maybe our cities will be the underground city someday.
Global warming. Yeah.
What about
I'm
you, Bernie?
grateful for all of you. I'm grateful for our conversation with Blake Lemoyne tomorrow, and I am grateful for breakthrough technology and multi-streaming it out so they can't suppress it anymore, so we can survive off of things like hydrogen, electrolysis, monoatomics, and what's written about in the past and needs to be repeated into our future.
I want to be ant people. Something about that outfit that looks pretty hard. It goes pretty hard.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys
Ciao.
for being here.
There's what's been